There's a world out there, it's a digital maze where dollars move in mysterious ways. Complex systems, rules, and regulations. The payments professor sparks revelations. No need to fear the Fed now.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Payments Podium. Today we're going to talk about what is ECCHO. ECCHO. Okay, enough with the bad jokes. Actually, you know me, there's going to be a lot of bad jokes. But today I have got a legend in payments, and he's been around for a long time. For once, we actually got somebody who's been around longer than me. I know that's hard to believe, but I want to welcome to the Payments Podium, Scott Miller. Scott, would you please say hi to everybody?
Hello, everybody. And Kevin, I just want to be clear. That's the first time I've ever heard that echo joke.
No way.
There could be some sarcasm there, Sheldon.
Some sarcasm there. Okay, I gotta say too, I love your sense of humor. You got that dry sense of humor, and sometimes I gotta question whether or not you're joking or not. But Scott, number one thing I ask people when they come on the Payments Podium, and I've got to know with you because it's usually an interesting story. It's like, how in the world did you end up in the electronic payments industry? Because only one time somebody did say, I dreamed of being in electronic payments, and I even played banker when I was a little kid. And I was like, wait, what? You did what? Most of us, never had any idea, no plans. We just ended up in the industry. So how did you end up here?
It's totally by accident. So it was just one of those deals, going through college and kind of doing those things, and needed a job. And at that point in time, I was playing softball, had some buddies that worked at the local Federal Reserve Bank, and they had a couple positions open on the night shift and check processing. Had no idea even what that meant. So I did apply, and for whatever reason, probably bad judgment on their part, they selected me for the position. And I continued to work with the Fed at different positions across a 22-year career there, kind of leading up to running payments for a couple of years. And then my last 5 or 6 years, I worked in like account management. So I had an assigned territory to go out and work with banks and credit unions in this region. And then in 2005, I left the Federal Reserve and went to work for ECCHO. And if you remember, at that point in time, right around 2005, right prior to that, in 2003, Check 21 legislation was passed on my wife's birthday. Happy birthday to her on the 28th of October. And then a year later, in 2024, it was enacted. So ECCHO, again, well, we'll start talking about that here in a bit too, was started in 1990. I joined in 2005. And really my task at that point in time was to go out and grow the ECCHO membership and have folks use the ECCHO rules. And I think that you'll probably ask me some leading questions there. But in 2018, ECCHO was acquired by the clearinghouse. And so we're still active today, and working under the clearinghouse umbrella as a kind of its own business line.
So playing softball, and you ended up in the electronic payments organization. So how about I start off with a softball question for you? Here you go. We'll let you hit a home run. What in the world is ECCHO? Who is ECCHO?
So ECCHO, at that point, it created in 1990. It was the Electronic Check Clearinghouse Organization. So today, kind of making a point is that we don't no longer go by Electronic Check Clearinghouse Organization. We only go by the acronym ECCHO. So again, we started in 1990 as a joint cooperative of a bunch of financial institutions who wanted to exchange electronic check presentment data, so the microline information on the bottom of the checks early in the day so that they could post those items. And so again, just access to early information. A number of institutions elected to exchange outside of the Federal Reserve. They just wanted to exchange between themselves to eliminate some of the fees and so forth that they needed to pay at the Fed. So ECCHO, it was created as a rules provider for these institutions to use with these ECP files, the electronic check presentment files. And then across time, it morphed over into check image rules, as we just talked about with the implementation of the Check 21 legislation in 2004. Excuse me.
Well, I got to stop now. You said ECHO started off. It actually stood for Electronic Check Clearinghouse Organization, but it doesn't anymore. It's just ECHO. That's kind of like one of those things. RTP is just RTP. It doesn't actually stand for real time payments, even though
Right.
they are real time payments.
That's right. Yeah, and it was a decision, a business decision, when we were migrated or assumed by the clearinghouse that they wanted to move away from the legacy words of electronic check clearinghouse organization and just make it, because it was cumbersome too. To be honest with you, it's just ECHO. I think the people that in the industry know ECHO, and they don't want to have to say electronic check clearinghouse organization all the time and those types of things.
I agree. It's so much easier just to say ECHO. And we've got so many acronyms in the industry as it is. Let's just keep it as it is. But in basis, you do, though, provide rules and support and options for dealing with electronic check exchange.
We do, and so what I do, Kevin, is when I talk to people who are not familiar with ECHO, and I think that there's a number of institutions out there that still don't know who we are and what our role is, and so I'm very appreciative of this conversation today. But again, as a rules provider, I try to tell people in this check world, you need to build your wall of defenses. And so if you're a financial institution today that are using the Federal Reserve for exchange, you are governed. Again, if you're thinking about building this wall, you have Uniform Commercial Code at the base, followed by on top of Reg CC on top of that. And then again, if you're using the Fed, you're using Regulation J, Operating Circular 3, and whatever specific product that you have with the Fed. That's what's governing your transactions through the Fed. In the private sector, so Kevin's credit union and Scott's Bank want to get into an image exchange relationship, the Regulation J and OC3 do not apply. And so again, we have the Uniform Commercial Code, we have Regulation CC, but we need some kind of a set of rules. Now, it can be the ECHO rules, or maybe your crafty attorney could draft you up a set of rules for you and I to play by. But that's limiting, because it would mean that would govern our transaction between you and me. But chances are you or myself want to get into multiple exchange relationships, and we only want to have one set of rules to follow. And that's really the role of ECHO. So again, UCC, Reg CC, the ECHO rules, but the ECHO rules don't stand on their own either. So you need to have like a banking practices agreement on top of that. And it sounds scary, but the banking practices agreement, what its function is to outline operational aspects of the exchange. Where do I send the file? How do I send the file? At what time do I send the file? What rules are we playing by? Oh, we're playing by the ECHO rules. So again, it's a pretty easy process, but we need to have those types of things.
Okay, you just said pretty easy process, and I know there's people already there going, wait a minute, payment professor, can you please slow him down and unpack that for us? And that's one of the things that when we start talking rules and regulations, so many people start to tune out. But the reality is what you just said is basically checks can be confusing because it depends on how it got processed. That's what I heard is you said, if you go through the Fed, that's a deciding factor. If you go through the Fed, then certain rules apply. If you process, like you said, bank to bank situation, then certain rules apply. And the beautiful thing of what ECHO can do is if you're ECHO members, then you make it easier to understand what rules apply. Did I get that right? I'm just trying to simplify it, but is that basically what you're able to do is take away some of that confusion as far as what applies and make it easier that if now it's the if that is still there, if both banks are members of ECHO or credit unions are members of ECHO, then we're going to go by ECHO rules to make it easier for people to understand what rules are going to apply.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that you did a nice job in paraphrasing that, and it does make it easier. So again, if you think about a simple exchange, Scott's Bank sending to the Federal Reserve, sending an image exchange cash letter to the Fed, and then the Fed is aggregating and dissecting that file and then sending off to Kevin's credit union, right? Your items. So that's a very simple exchange that is under Fed rules from some soup to nuts. But what's happening a lot of times is we'll have maybe Scott's Bank and Kevin's credit union want to get into that exchange outside of the Fed. So we have our own plumbing where we can exchange those items, but we need to have that set of rules again to make it easier. But these transactions can get really complicated in that Scott's Bank could send to a banker's bank under one set of rules, and then that banker's bank could send to an aggregator and some kind of a switch, and that could be under a different set of rules. But primarily, most of those guys are under the ECHO rules too. And then that aggregator switch would send it off maybe to a corporate credit union, who's also a financial institution, and then that would send it off to finally Kevin's natural person credit union. So within all of that stuff, it gets complicated because if you have different rules governing those different segments of the transaction, what happens when there's a problem in a transaction? What if it's where does the paying bank go back? How do they get back to the bank of first deposit? What rules apply? Where don't they apply? And so again, we do try to simplify that process. We handle a number of questions from our members. I think that check it's not sexy and glamorous as people think that it is. I think it's hard to attract.
Yeah.
I know it's
Yeah.
weird, but a lot of people that work in check are long in the tooth, and we've lost so much industry experience and knowledge. And so now it's hard to replace that knowledge. And everybody's hoping and praying, I guess, that checks go away. But I just don't see that on the immediate horizon. And so we still need to have people.
Well, hold on. You said so much because first of all, you described so many different scenarios, and I want to point out that one of the things I think that is wonderful that ECHO does is you provide so much education to people to be able to go learn more about it. I mean, payments professor, I do too. I do a lot of education on checks, but I know ECHO is really good on providing education, and even more so the certification program. Did a podcast with Jackie on the NCP program. And I can tell you my early days, I remember when I first got involved in checks, and I was around right before Check 21, I got hired by a software company, told about this wonderful new product that's going to take pictures of checks. I'm like, great. And I understood the whole process. And then they introduced me to the laws and regulations. And I'm like, I quit. And then all of a sudden I learned about ECHO. And I was like, oh, wait, you guys make this so much easier. Why doesn't everybody do this? And maybe that's a good question. Why doesn't everybody follow the ECHO rules?
Well, I think that it's complicated. Just as in my opening comments I was talking about, I think that there's a number of folks that don't know who we are, don't know that it exists.
Exactly.
A lot of the institutions in the industry have had a long-standing relationship with the Fed. That's a known processing. They don't have to do anything different in their processing. They're just going to ram through volume, sending volume to the Fed, receiving volume from the Fed, kind of clean and simple. They're not concerned about maybe what the fees are that they're paying through the Fed. I would say that right now our membership is around 2,500 financial institutions. So
That's pretty good.
well, I think that it is, Kevin. I think that in kind of real math, that's about 29% of the industry as it stands today. So I think that that's good. The more encouraging thing about that number to me is that we were able to add about 200 financial institution members in 2024. Just this last year, in the calendar year, 12 months of 2024, we added 200 new clients. And I think that one of the big benefits was in March of last year, we made a huge change. And that was with our forged and counterfeit check warranty, kind of affectionately known as Rule 9. And so under Rule 9, an institution they have to be a member of ECHO, but they didn't have to be using the ECHO rules in their exchange. So again, going back to our example, Scott's Bank sending through the Fed to Kevin's bank, both of us are ECHO members because we want to take advantage of Rule 9. We want to take advantage of ECHO's on-call support and our education library, which we're trying to bolster up this year as well. So again, it doesn't matter on the exchange. If you have a forged or counterfeit item, you as the paying bank, you can now make that claim back to me, the bank of first deposit. Whereas prior to March 1, you couldn't do that because it was based on exchange. So we've taken out that dynamic where it doesn't matter exchange mechanism anymore. It's only matters based on ECHO membership. Rule 9 is a big thing because when do financial institutions typically find a forged or counterfeit check item? The answer is that they're going to find it well after the return windows have shut.
Yeah, days later. Days later.
And,
Yeah.
right. Probably when the customer comes in and says this is a forged or counterfeit item. So under Rule 9, it allows 60 days from statement date for that for that customer to come back into the paying bank to make that claim. And so again, it extends that timing. People get confused that it's a return. It's like a late return. It's not. It's a special. It's a special claim. Some institutions are able to use the returns mechanism, but it really is an adjustment. And again, I think that brought us a number of institutions last year because of all the fraud activity that's going on in the industry currently.
I mean, I got to say, I think it's one of the best things about the ECHO rules is having the Rule 9 because it really opens up the possibilities of what you can do when you run into those forged type situations. But I also want to say, too, it's like I'm sitting here realizing a lot of people don't know about who ECHO is. And, it's one of the reasons I invited you on here is I want to get the word out on who ECHO is. But do people realize they can join too? Are there maybe the question is, are there restrictions on what financial institutions can join, or is it open to everybody? Is it open to all financial institutions to join ECHO?
Yeah, it is open to every financial institution in the country. And again, I think that we're one of the better kept secrets in the industry. I think that we're really good at rules. We're really good at education and support. I think that as far as the ECHO team goes, we're not marketers. And so we do a bad job of trying to do outreach. We do work through industry partners. But again, if you think about our 2,500 financial institution members today, in that membership, you have large banks, you have small banks, you have community banks, you have bankers banks, you have natural person credit unions, you have corporate credit unions, you have savings and loans, you have some special institutions. So again, you have to be a financial institution to be a member. So
And US based, right?
absolutely, yep. This is only U.S. based. Although we do have a rule in our rule set for northbound Canadian items, but that's a topic for a different day. And I would throw out a kudos to Jackie too. So she does run that national check certification program, and I think she does an outstanding job with it. And again, the point of that is that with all the knowledge that left the industry, it's so important that the financial institutions learn because they are responsible for how to process items and what the rules and regs are. And so again, I can't stress that enough, is I think that a lot of folks, because it's confusing, check law is based on laws from 1762, right? So it's before America was a country. So again, it's just trying to make sure that people understand. And Kevin, we get questions all the time from our clients, and they go, I have this situation. This is what I'm thinking I should be doing with it. Am I right or wrong? And we can kind of nudge them down the right path, not legal advice, but we can just kind of nudge them like, yeah, this is what you need to do. But we also get questions that's like, I have this situation, I have no idea what to do. And it's just like my heart stops for them because, again, that financial institution is liable. They're on the hook for these items. And so they need to have somebody in their shop that understands this stuff because otherwise they have to pay outside counsel time or whatever. But they also want to have other industry relationships, and that might be with a banker's bank, a corporate credit union, with a payments association.
Can I point out something? You said you get questions.
Mm-hmm.
So a member of ECHO can call ECHO and say, we've got this situation. This situation has happened. And ECHO will sit there and say that the people at ECHO that work there, I mean, experts in the industry with a lot of time, a lot of experience, who know the different rules, the UCCs, the Reg Js, the ECHO rules themselves, will walk them through their situation and be able to not necessarily tell them what to do, but help, like you said, the word nudge. I like that one a lot better. Nudge them in the right direction, give them a little bit of guidance, or maybe a plan of action that they can follow to get them to where they can make a decision on their own with their legal counsel. That's important right there, is consult with their own legal counsel of what they can do. And that's like a huge benefit of being a member, is they can call in to get some assistance with the problems they're having.
Yeah, and I don't know what the numbers were off the top of my head, so I'll make up a number. It was somewhere maybe between 1,100 and 1,200 client calls that we took last year in 2024.
Wow.
And we're off to a start this year too. So the disclaimer that I would make is that, we're not attorneys at ECCHO.
Right.
So we are not UCC or Reg CC experts, nor are we Reg J and OC3 experts. But we know and understand where the warranties live, the warranties and
Mhm.
indemnities live in UCC and Reg CC. And I think that if people really focus on the warranties and they understand those and what they mean, I think that they can answer a lot of their questions. So again, we can help from that aspect, and then we can talk to them and help them through kind of these Rule 9 considerations. And then I think the other part of the ECHO membership benefit is, and I think that there's a number of industry contacts, databases that are starting up around the industry. But we've also had one too for kind of like these exception items, because I think the frustration is when Kevin's credit union is trying to get to Scott's bank, he may or may not know how to get to me. And so again, we're just putting those out there as a gift to get model for these financial institutions to use. And I think that we grew that, and our list is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination either.
Mhm.
And we want to build on that list. We want to do different things with it. But I think that we grew it by another 100, not 100 financial institutions last year, with more work yet to be done on it. But again, I think it's one of those things where a lot of times you and I just want to have a conversation about this return or adjustment, just to know the status of it, those types of things. So again, I think another benefit as I see it is that contact database.
So, okay, I think what I'm hearing is I get the peace of mind to knowing I can call and talk to somebody. I'm thinking I probably have a chance of being able to recuperate some funds, maybe save on some losses, maybe even protect my financial institution in many different ways because I get to talk to somebody. You're now telling me that I have the potential of being able to find somebody else at another institution I can actually get on the phone and talk to, which I mean, that's been a headache for years, is actually getting another contact at another institution, which is big. What about if there's maybe changes that are happening in the rules or changes that are happening in the industry? Do you ever like send out bulletins to let people know, hey, this change is happening, this regulation, this change is happening to this rule? Do you have any like annual meetings or things like that that people can go to get further education, to be aware of what's happening, upcoming events, things like that?
Yeah, so a couple different things in that aspect. And so we have different work groups that meet. So we have a business committee, an operations committee, and an exceptions and fraud working group committee. And I'd also say that from time to time we have ad hoc subcommittees that are created, and then they disband once their work is over. So if you kind of think about some of the legal considerations, maybe there's a potential change to Regulation CC, and we wanted to get with some of our ECHO member attorneys. Maybe we want to draft a letter back to the Fed for a comment. So we get that group together to work on that. Um, we have these, like I said, the business committee is limited to our full member category of membership. Operations committee gets a little bit wider with full members and participants. Just different classifications give people access to those meetings. The exceptions and fraud working group, we've been opening that up to a lot of different financial institutions. And I think that those are conference calls. They're easy for people to attend. They're about 90 minutes long. Steve Cree, I think that you've interviewed Steve here a couple days ago on some different things. He runs those meetings, does a nice job. And so again, it's just an industry engagement. So it's a way for us to have items to discuss on that call, but it's also a way, and so you can go there as a participant and learn and listen and kind of understand what other people are doing, but you also have an opportunity to participate and say, this is what I see what's going on. And it helps educate others as well. So you can take education, but you can also provide education. What we try to do as well, and there's been a couple of things that kind of cropped up on us this year by surprise, is we do try to make things available on our website when we hear about things, such as maybe there's some stuff going on with treasury checks. Maybe there's a new stimulus payment. So there's going to be an injection of treasury checks into the market. So when you have an injection of a number of payments coming into the system, that might mean you might see some other fraud. And then we were kind of taken aback by surprise, maybe. I don't know what you want to call it, when the post office just recently said that they were going to start using another post office routing transit number and a new design on some of the money orders that they issue. And they're kind of fast tracking it. So these things might be going out as soon as the middle of February. So to me, we try to, because, really, I mean, we were sitting here in ECHO going, we didn't know about this, but we had a member bring that information to us. And so we were able to talk about it in our exceptions and fraud working group. But there's also, we're trying to get in touch with the post office, trying to find out more information and trying to say, have these been tested through image? Is it going to, anyway, what's going to happen with these items? So we do try to make our folks aware of all this stuff too. We don't try to be, we're not like a news agency, so we don't try to be first to post something on our website. We want to make sure whatever we're posting out there is accurate and informational enough for our institutions to get some value from it.
But you get to be proactive. And, I've got to serve in some of those work groups before in the past. And what I loved about it, and I will tell people, is you get to feel like you make a difference. And that is what is so nice, is you hear a lot of times is, how can I get this changed? How can I make a difference in the industry? How can I actually feel like I'm part of it? And that is how. That is one of the key things that I figured out, is that is how. Now, one important thing I got to ask you before we run out of time, because I'm sure people are going, there's a lot of benefits here. There's the education, there's the special rule, there's making the rules easier to understand, there's getting to be part of so many different aspects of this. How do I join? How does a financial institution who's listening, hearing all these benefits, how do they join and become part of ECHO?
Well, I think that the easiest answer, Kevin, is that they can reach out to me directly, or if they want to, on our website, theclearinghouse.org/ECHO. There's a spot out there. And again, I should point that out too. The number of benefits out there on just that website itself. But there is a membership contact information out there. It's echoinfo@theclearinghouse.org. So they're more than welcome to reach out there. But I think that even if you're not a member, or if you're thinking about considering membership, or maybe you don't want membership, but you're looking to see what else we have to offer, I suggest go out to that website, theclearinghouse.org/ECHO. It's going to bring up this fancy homepage with, we are the check experts. And I think that we're one of the last remaining check organizations out there, and we are specific to check. On the right-hand side, you're going to see a number of items that you can pick from. The one that I go out to quite often, either for myself or when I'm handling a client call, is this ECHO Check Resources. And so I click on that. And what's really cool is you go out there, there's some white papers, but maybe more importantly, there's some forms that you can use. You, financial institution, you can use today. You don't even have to be a member. But maybe you have an RDC claim that you want to make. There's a standard form that's out there. There's an ECI claim letter that's out there, and disclaim form. So there's a number of forms that are available to the masses, whether you're a member or not. There's an education tab on the right-hand side. Go out to the education tab. I said earlier, we're trying to bolster that here in 2025. There's a number of sessions out there, but there's some that are complimentary. And there's others for membership. You sign in, you get access to that data. And I think what's really cool about it is not only can you get the recording, which is fine, but more importantly, you get access to the PDFs. And so you look at me, this old check guy, there's some I've gone out there and I printed those decks or portions of those decks, and I keep them on my desk as a resource for when Kevin Credit Union calls me and says, I have this kind of a situation. And I have, kind of multiple roles here at the clearinghouse. And so sometimes I'm not thinking about exactly what your check issue is that day. So I need to refresh my memory just for a second. And those decks do a really nice job with that.
All right. Well, Scott, I got to say, you are a living legend. You've been an inspiration to me for years when it comes to working just in electronic payments, definitely in checks. I thank you so much for being on here today and helping us all to understand who ECHO is. And it has been a pleasure to be able to have this introduced. For all of you out there listening, I'll post, where you can go on the clearinghouse to be able to learn more about ECHO. It gets the payments professor's endorsement. You should all go join, learn more about ECHO. And if there's someone else that you want you think needs to be on the payments podium. If there's something else you think that we need to learn about on the payments podium, email me, Kevin@paymentsprofessor.com. And as always, I will do my best to make sure that we get that person, or we definitely get that topic and we get it addressed. But as always, for now, this is the part where I get to say, class dismissed.
There's a world out there, it's a digital maze where dollars move in mysterious ways. Complex systems, rules, and regulations. The payments professor sparks